Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Friday night, and the house is filling up. We got a good crowd coming in. We took a one-part interview, and we've now taken it into three, and I think we're going to be going four or five with this one too, because it's been interesting. It's been fun. Good feedback from everybody. So let's say hi to everybody. Mary, how you doing? Curtis is here. Amy's here. Curtis has a new nickname, by the way. Just for everybody, I'll let everybody read that in chat. Thank you guys for coming in. I know I saw other people. Michelle, how you doing? Thanks for coming in. And I know I saw Lenny, who was, I'm beyond words of appreciative for the mug that Lenny bought, had engraved for a particular occasion I was supposed to be at. Due to health issues, I couldn't make it. And also weather affected Lenny's travel. So I will make up for this appearance. So the man, the myth, the legend, Bigfoot Trembles is now a new part of my stage right here. So thank you, Lenny, for the contribution. We got Hulk and Bigfoot and wrestling going on in the background. So tonight, like I said, we took a one-part interview and we are breaking this up because David has some good stuff. He's got some great stuff going on. One quick announcement before we bring out David is the fact that Monday night we are going to be doing a special show. And to celebrate the fact that Monday night, October 20th, the Patterson Gimlin film was filmed, which most people in here, if not all who are listening, know what I'm talking about, the famous footage of Patty walking across that riverbed. And as far as I know, the foremost expert on that film, MK Davis, is going to be my guest Monday night to come on the show. And as far as I know, he's done the most work on the film. I think he was the first one to stabilize it. It was either him or Bill Munn. And MK Davis has other fantastic things going on and so much history, and super excited to have him on. I can't believe he said yes, but hey, even a camel finds a little water once in a while, and this camel's found water twice in the last month because our guest, David Walker, has, claimed to fame of his own. Not only the last three shows we've been doing, the TV shows he's been on, his claim to fame that he's the only one who got a slap in the melon from Bigfoot and can still talk about it. So we are going to say hi to Maria, and then now we're going to bring David out. David's going to bring us back up to speed before we get into the new stuff, because we are going to be talking Bigfoot, orbs, UFOs, and possible connections. So without further ado, Mr. David, how we doing?
We're doing good, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I want to get people's comments up, but how's things going?
Well, we're getting ready to make a move, so things are kind of busy around here.
So
But hey, that's the way it goes sometimes.
how far are you moving?
Probably about 45 minutes north from where I'm at now. So I'll be up in Canton, Ohio, which is the same place I work at. So that's going to be a whole lot less of a drive to work.
Oh yeah, you pay for gas with a 45-minute drive each way.
Yeah, so gas has been fluctuating here lately. You don't know if it's low, and then it goes back up to the regular.
Oh yeah, that's up here. I noticed because I used to have the summer car, so I pay attention to the premium gas prices. It used to be like a 20-cent difference, and now it's $1 difference. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
was amazing. I like when it goes the low dollar way.
yeah, exactly. That was why I quit having summer cars, because 70 Chevelles, the gas, to get, how do I want to put the gas gauge and the speedometer meet in the middle as you push that floor pedal to the floor. So,
Right. Well, what my wallet was the meat in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. Money doesn't grow on trees, and it sure don't grow in my wallet either. I can tell you that.
I wish. I've been
Whoever
getting me
called it
some of that
cabbage.
wallet miracle grow.
Yeah, exactly. They may call it cabbage, but it sure don't grow like it. I can tell you that. I can grow cabbage.
No.
All right. Well, when I think about that, still your experience, the fact that you and your friend both got a bop on the head from a Bigfoot. That's,
Yeah, it's. I think I know why because we tried to start a fire earlier, and from my co-author, he said that they don't like fires, and they kind of think, if your fire gets away from a couple of boys, they're trying to burn their home down. So I guess because you probably irritated them a little bit. That's why you got the slap.
yeah. That's kind of a fatherly way of saying, "Hey, you kids, what do you think you're doing?"
Kind of like, yeah, he's the guardian of the forest, so he's like this big Yogi Bear, Um, make sure you put out the fire before you leave.
Yeah, that reminds me of another real quick incident involving flames and a Bigfoot encounter where a gentleman who was on his porch, him and the little woman were having a little disagreement. He went on the porch to have a cigar, and next thing you know, he is laying on his back, and he's like, he's got something on his face, and he's pawing at it. It feels like mud, like a big mud ball. So he's trying to pull this mud out of his face, and then realizes it smells. And as he's clearing his eyes, he can see, I believe it was an 8-footer standing across the field, and had taken apparently a handful of Bigfoot feces, like I got in my freezer, but he got right in the mush with it. So, apparently a wildfire had gone through there not that long ago. So I don't think the Bigfoot appreciated the fact that he was out there smoking a cigar. So it gave him a turd right in the mush and for his troubles. And if I
Yeah,
remember right, he went in and showered, and he couldn't get the smell out of his clothes. So he was so mad and frustrated with life in general. He went out, threw him in a burn barrel, dumped a bunch of gas on it, and just threw a match in. Didn't pay attention to the gas, so it literally blew the burn barrel apart, blew him 15 feet back, and a big burn mark on his house. So
now that is a story, right there.
yeah.
I bet you he had to think long and hard to get that one.
Chat GPT, what's the funniest Bigfoot poop story you can come up with?
Yeah, yeah. That's a good one. I like that one. I've heard some doozies.
Oh yeah, once you can get people to talk to you, it's amazing what's. I mean,
Yes.
you have to.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I left my mark. Or I'm probably going to go down in history as the peanut butter kid or the sweet and low box with the Bigfoot poo in his freezer that got discovered on live TV. So,
That just like Frosty the Snowman, you'll go down in history. Or was that
yeah,
Rudolph? That was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I'm sorry.
I thought it would be in the world of fitness because I've been a trainer for coming up on 40 years. So I figured I would leave my mark in the fitness world somehow with some new revolutionary workout or diet, and it's going to be for feeding them peanut butter and crap in my freezer.
I'll tell you that will do it right there. Well, we ready to get a
All right,
rolling on this, or
let's go.
all righty. Well, just to recap, everybody, the first two shows we've been kind of digging into a little bit of the Bible and the Book of Enoch, and we're talking about these sons of God and that particular portion of Scripture. For all you, I don't know, it'd be nice if they had their Bibles out, but they don't. I want to go ahead and read the most important one, anyhow. Genesis 6. We're going to go 1 through 4. But I want to read you verse 4, and I want to try to follow along as much as you can. If you don't have a Bible or something on your phone to follow along with. It says there were giants, and that's Hebrew Nephilim, in the earth in those days. And you say, well, what days? The days, I think they're referring to the days before the flood. And also after that. Well, that would be after the global deluge of Noah's flood. When it says, it continues on with that thought, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. Now, as we talked about in a couple episodes there, there's a little debate about the sons of God, but 85% people in the religious world really believe that it's referring to angels, or more specifically, fallen angels. So, and we won't go into how they fell. They fell, I believe, in a previous time period before Adam and Eve. And that gets you into a theory called the gap theory and all that stuff. We're not going to go into that because what we're interested in, we want to get into the meat potatoes of this program. We're interested in these jeepers, creepers, beasts, these cryptids out there and everything like that. So I'm not going to dwell too heavily in on this subject, but it is necessary so that when I say certain things, you'll say, oh, he must have been talking about this or that. You know what I'm saying? So it says, these sons of God. So for the program, folks, we'll take it that it's referring to fallen type angels that came down from the heavens. And according to this, what I'm getting ready to read here to you, it said the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men of old, men of renown. I remember reading that as a kid, and I'm like, if I didn't know any better, I'd sound like them, them beings from the Greek mythology and Roman mythology and, the whole realm there, because they were very well noted for being, I don't know, like Titans, I guess superheroes in a I don't know, bad way. Superheroes in a bad way. We're not talking about just regular Superman who's in a good way, or of course our Lord. But so we're talking about these guys kind of stirring up some trouble because they didn't like the natural order of things. And we're gonna key in on a little bit more of this natural order as we go along tonight. So I put down here on my notes, I put, could these Nephilim giants, these men of old, refer to the giant that existed on earth before the flood? I think that would probably be a good thing to assume. And again, folks, if you know, don't quote me on every single thing. It'd be nice nice for you to study this out a little bit more on your own because as Brian said, it's such a vast subject that you can't get it done on one program or two or even three. You just can't get it done. But it's such an interesting subject that I could talk all night about it because there's so much to encompass. There's so much to look at. And the more like YouTube programs I watch on certain things, uh, the more I really, really learn. I mean, it's just myself. It's just like, oh, I never considered that, and things of that nature. And as you listen to this program tonight, you'll probably be saying the same thing. I never thought of that. He brought out a pretty good point there. At least that's what I'm hoping you will. If
Right.
I do this program right. So anyhow, and also the phrase "men of renown," I believe refers to the great exploits, the supernatural power of these giants. I mean, even today, I've heard of Bigfoot before, or Sasquatch, whichever term you prefer, grabbing a hold of trees and pulling them things right out of the ground, and then turning them around and somehow sticking them back into the ground with the roots up in the air.
Yeah.
Now, my friend, I don't have to say this next part, but that takes a lot of strength. And I've got pictures in my book, and my book is Supernatural Cryptids, return of the Nephilim. And again, I had one lady at a show. She said, "Sir, I like your book and I like the pictures and everything, but I don't kind of quite agree with your thesis that the cryptid like Bigfoot stuff are the Nephilim." I said, "Ma'am, I don't think you like maybe understood what the title. I'm saying that because I believe there's a link, a very close link to these giants of old, and perhaps the Bigfoot and dog man and these other weird creatures today. There's a close link there, and perhaps they live in the same house, but they don't live in the same room. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but you get my drift. They're very closely related." And so she said, "Oh, I thought you meant that they were." I said, "No. In my book, all I do is talk about a subject that I ask a question. And then I give, a footnote as to what somebody else said about that particular subject. And then I go on, okay, if that's the case, what about this?" So all through the book, I'll be asking questions. And Brian, do you have a copy of the book right there for them to see? The
I
front
don't.
cover at least?
I don't have your book.
Okay. Oh, you don't have it?
Mm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, folks, hold on to that title then.
Yep.
Um, I have it, but
Tell us where we
my
can get
my
it.
my front's kind of messed up on it, so I don't really. It's not going to do anybody any good. Uh, but anyhow, so yes, remember that if you want to get it, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Walmart websites. Supernatural Cryptids: Return of the Nephilim, and it's very very good. Listen, I ain't going to make. I'm not going to get rich off of this thing. Anybody that wrote a book, especially if you self-publish, they don't treat you very good. You're lucky if you get a $50 or $60 royalty for 6 months, and I'm being dead serious. So I'm not in this for the money. I'm only in it to educate people as much as I possibly can, and for us all to have a good discussion, have a lot of fun, and that's what it's all about. That's what the whole entire cryptozoology is about, is learning things about these things, because there's always something to learn, and they're always doing something different, or somebody sees something that looks a little bit different. There's all kind of these creatures out there, and to be honest with you, there was all kind of creatures back, probably even more so back before the flood than what there is even today, because there was some shady shenanigans going on back there. And to believe it or not, these things, these Nephilim giants, are said and are quoted by God to make another comeback. They've been here. They were before the flood. Then of course they got drowned in the flood. They came back again after the flood. And then God said, "No, you're trying to stop my people from going into the promised land. So I'm going to take you out. But I already promised Noah I wasn't going to flood the world no more. So we're gonna use you guys, Israel, my people. We're going to use you to snuff them giants out." Well, they did to a certain extent in their particular part of the land, but they didn't kill them all.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a certain amount of these giants that we're getting out of here. And then God also sent, in Deuteronomy says, he sent the hornet among them to drive them out. Can you imagine 12, 15 foot, and even taller, 20 foot, I don't know, giants running away from a hornet about the size of your thumb or a little bit bigger?
Yeah.
I'm sure the angels laughed when they seen that stuff happening. Or maybe a swarm of hornets was after him. I
Yeah.
remember when I was a kid, I threw a rock and hit a hornet's nest because my neighbor told me to. And when I threw it, I go, "Hey, I hit it smack down," like that. I'm laughing. He goes, "I'm getting out of here." He takes off running. I'm like, "Why? What do you mean?" All of a sudden I heard, "Mm," and then came down toward old David. And then my feet was going just like the road runner, buddy. I was making tracks for the door. And I got in that door, and them horns smacked against that door window, and I barely made it in. So thank God I was close to the door of my house. But I learned a big lesson: never mess with the hornet.
Nope. Because
So anyhow, these giants took off, for other lands because the Israelites were God was giving them supernatural ability and powers to kill the giants, and they were falling right and left. They went and took Jericho right away. Went in and started marching to these other cities. I like to go on with stories about that, but what I'm trying to say is not only did they just get out of Israel, some of them went up north into Europe, and then they went across the ocean, ended up in North America. Some of them went across the other around the tip, went around the tip of South America. Sorry, the Suez Canal wasn't there at that time. They went around the tip of South America and went up into Peru. How many of you have ever heard of the elongated skulls that they found in Peru?
Yeah.
If you ever follow L.A. Marzulli and some of his, and Brian Forrester and some of his the people that help him out on his programs, he's always on the trail of the Nephilim. L.A. is, and it's funny because this trail of the Nephilim is all through the Bible. It starts in Genesis. Actually, it starts in Genesis chapter 6, but the actual war with the seed starts in Genesis 3:15. And that's where, God says that, after he pronounced judgment on Adam, on Eve, and then he went to the serpent and he said, I'm going to put enmity between the woman's seed and your seed. And the woman's seed will be able to crush your head, but you'll be able to hurt his heel. Well, you said, well, he's talking to the serpent. I didn't know the serpent had seed. And so that really confuses a lot of people. But if you take into account the fact that the serpent did kind of have a lot of people on it, a lot of his own kind on his side, the fallen angels. It says, and if you remember in Revelation, it says his tail grabbed a hold of the third of the stars of heaven and cast him unto the earth. And then he waited, to kill the child as soon as it came out of the woman's womb. Remember the woman with 12 stars on her head, which represented Israel, and that's found in Revelation chapter 12. So what it's doing there, even though it's Revelation and everybody thinks Revelation is all future, it technically isn't all future. There are some things that point to the past. And this part in chapter 12, there are certain parts that point to the past. And some things are even double connotation. That which happened in the past will also happen in the future. And so it says the same thing, but it happens twice. That's called a double connotation in scripture. That basically for Bible buffs. And trust me, I'm not trying to say I'm an expert, but I've just done so much study that I have ran across that particular part of it. And so anyhow, this seed war starts. The serpent started it by deceiving the first couple. And by when he did this, and this is what the seed war is all about, Brian, and all the listeners. It's about changing the original structure of God's original creation. He started it right off the bat because when Adam and Eve fell, what happened to their outward appearance? Something drastically changed because it says that Adam and Eve went and they got a hold of fig leaves. That they realized that they were naked once they ate of that forbidden fruit. What? Huh?
Oh, I was
Um,
just waving to the chat.
oh, I see. Whether it was an apple or whether it was a pomegranate or what kind of ever fruit it was a forbidden fruit because of the two trees in the garden. They were forbidden to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Of course, they could eat of the tree of life. Um, but anyhow, it started right there. And when they lost their innocence, they said there was a brightness, there was a shining brightness upon Adam and Eve. They glowed, a very bright light. And God is light himself. And so this bright light that shone for their innocence and their connection to God, when the fall happened, that all went away. It was taken away. It crumbled. because, and so there you go. He changed the outward appearance. Now, these beings that were close to the heart of God now had disobeyed the Father, and now they were walking away through their disobedience. But anyhow, God understood what happened. He already knew, and so He called out to Adam. Hey, where are you at? Adam's like, I don't want to come right now, God. This ain't a good time for fellowship. What do you mean? What's going on? Well, we're naked. Who told you you were naked? No one told them. They just knew. That's when God said, have you eaten of that tree? Yeah. The serpent beguiled at us, and we did eat. So that's where it got to Genesis 3:14 and 15, where he pronounced war on the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. But the seed of the woman, he said, she'll eventually crush your head. But you're going to be able to hurt that seed a little bit too. And whatever God says, that's exactly what will happen. And Satan knew it. He knew, oh my God, wait a minute now. I got to be able to do something here. What can I do? He made man in his image, and he's thinking, and he's thinking. Pretty soon he comes up with it. That's it. I'll corrupt the image. Now, there is a book written by, it's called Corrupting the Image by Douglas Hamp. I don't know if you've heard of him or not. Very awesome guy for, he's way far better than I am as far as knowing the word and everything and being able to break it down so that you can, understand it or whatever. Douglas Hamp, Corrupting the Image. If you can get that book, get it. It's well worth it. But he says in there that that's exactly what he was trying to do. Anything he could do to corrupt the image. So all through the entire Bible, he is doing this, and he doesn't do it any better than when the fallen angels came down and began to do their stuff with the woman. Well, people say, well, woman cannot conceive. Excuse me, angels cannot have sexual relations with a human woman because they're spirit. And that may be that perfectly may be, but it does say in the Bible where these supernatural beings and the ones that fall, even though they fell, they still retained a lot of their supernatural power, although there were some things they could not do. They kind of had their wings clipped. So yeah, they were punished as far as what they couldn't do as much as what the regular angels can do. They can't do that. They can't just fly anywhere they want to go. Now they have to kind of get things aligned to be able to jump off the grid. Use the constellation, use the stars, use their former knowledge, which wasn't very much because different ones had different knowledge. So they had to put everything together. It took them a long while to figure it all out. And then they were still limited. But anyhow, we want to get back to why did God send that flood? And if it was just for wicked people, we'd all be drowned right now. The whole world would be submerged. So there had to be something more. And because the fallen angels did come down, and they said they took of themselves wives. Now they didn't ask the wise husband, hey, could I have Mary for a couple hours? Me and Mary, we like to kind of get together. You know what I'm trying to say? No, they didn't do that. Obviously, they just took them. I believe some of them went voluntarily, but I don't believe they all did. I believe a lot of them, probably the majority of them, I'm guessing, they had a force to take them. That's because of the Hebrew word that's used there. Used implies a forced taking by force. But then they said that there were some of the women. They thought it was okay. Hey, beautiful angel. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Well, my husband's gone right now, so we got a few hours there. You know what I'm saying? So, and I don't know if that exactly was a conversation or not, but I'm just saying that I don't believe they had to take them all by force. But
But
anyhow, we'll get past that. So they put supernatural seed, they mix supernatural seed in with natural woman, and this formed these beings we're talking about in the book called the Nephilim giants. Now they were evil, immoral, cannibalistic. They drank blood. They anything was forbidden. Oh, they was up. They was up for that. Uh, Killed. Just took out. Just took their leave of whatever they wanted to do. They did it, and they were allowed to because they were in charge. What's a guy at 6 foot going to do with a giant that's what 12, 15, or 20 feet?
yeah,
You're probably going to be looking for some place to hide if they come around. That would be what I would imagine. I think because they weren't all David against Goliath. They weren't all Davids. Oh, I'm going to call on the name of the Lord. They didn't call on the name of the Lord back in them days. Well, some did, but for the most part, the majority did not. And then the ones that did eventually must have, sinned greatly because they were all washed away. There was only 8 souls saved in the ark. So now, okay, let's get up to the part where, okay, there were some people say, well, you're talking about these giants. Where's the giant bones at, boy? How come we can't find no giant bones? How come one person has never come forward with any giant bone? I want to know. Surely, if they were here, somebody would find a bone of some proportion. Correct?
yeah.
You would think. You would think. So where they at? If they were here, and a lot of them that were dug up during the infrastructure when we put out our roads and highways and cities and the 1800s and 1900s, there were probably over, they said, 500 different newspapers across the United States. They had tons of stories about these people digging up bones of massive size. And so they said, well, hey, let's send some of them over to the Smithsonian Institution so that they can study them. Big, bad mistake. Because the Smithsonian was not interested in their giant bones. Brian, do you have somebody that has? I see a bunch of things popping up. I can't see them with the fine print because I just got my phone. If you
Yeah.
want to read some of them, you can stop me and say, "Hey, somebody said something," or ask a question.
Well, there's people agreeing with you. Let's see. Mary, they mated with humans for jealousy and trying to wipe out the humans. Amy uh, alludes to the fact that, yeah, they were able to still retain some of their powers. And John agrees with us and everybody else that people called the Smithsonian because they were supposed to be the authority on historic items, and they're probably in the basement somewhere.
Yeah, the
And
basement or maybe the ocean.
well, yeah, it
Okay.
seems to me I remember hearing that they're finding quite a few of them on the coast of Florida right now. A bunch of 12
Oh,
footers from underwater.
okay. Let's see. Where was that displayed at? Was that displayed on the internet or YouTube or what?
I remember reading about it on a couple different sites.
Okay.
One of those sites
Because
that popped up on my feed, and I started clicking. And I know everything on the internet's not true, but
yeah, I was just going. I was just that's what exactly what I was going to say. You can't believe everything you see or you read on the internet, and so not saying that some of it isn't true. It's just nowadays they got that AI, and that can just about stimulate anything that they want to put on there. So it's getting down to the fact what God wants all along. If He said it in His Word, Brian, I guarantee you, whether you can see it on a picture or anywhere, It is 100% true. Specifically, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. That Torah. Every word that was spoken to Moses in that Torah, he wrote down verbatim as God spoke it to him. And as you know, the Jewish people, I mean, that's what they live on, right there. That Torah. They know that came right out of the mouth of God Himself. So, being that we're talking about Genesis, whatever you read in Genesis, I guarantee you, it is a fact, whether you see it or not, whether you see giant bones. But anyhow, they have been seen, and they've been shipped over to the
Yeah.
Smithsonian. Now, this is what I got here, a little bit about the giants, and then we'll move on. But I believe it's necessary to complete that groundwork that I was talking to you about. Many people today severely question the existence of giants in the past. Why? Probably because, in most textbooks of our school and college campuses, they say nothing of any such mention of them ever even existing. Even the Smithsonian vehemently denies having any records of any giant bones ever sent to them or ever finding any themselves. I put, if that's the case, then over 200 plus individuals and groups of people who have reportedly found these bones and put their stories in the newspapers are lying all
Yeah.
across America. They're all lying, except the Smithsonian. And we have to trust the Smithsonian because they don't lie. Well, you better just not quite take that statement for factual. But I'm just kind of just listening a little bit here to me. Now, I have down here on my thing, read my pages 101 to 103, my book. I want to read them, and you're going to find out that maybe the Smithsonian should be trusted as much as what people have said to trust him. I put 1910, the Smithsonian hired their most infamous figure in their short history to be the creator of the division of physical anthropology. His name was Alice. Now, this last word is a kicker, and I probably ain't going to be saying it right. Yeah, I'm going to Hydrilica. It's Okay, how do you say it, Brian? It's HRDLICKA.
I can't even visualize that.
Hydrilic. I get my tongue wrapped around my eye tooth.
What was the first name?
And not Alex, but Alice. ALES.
Yes. So we'll just go with
Alice.
Alice. Alice H.
Hydrilic. My daughter would be laughing at me about right now because Dad gets his tongue wrapped around his eye tubes a lot. Hydrica. We'll just call him Hydrica, okay? That's not how you pronounce that. We'll call him Hydrica. That's the only thing I can actually say.
Hey, don't worry. I have a history on the show when there's a name I can't pronounce, like the guy who faked the Bigfoot in the suit. I just call him Hippopotamus because I can't pronounce his last name. So
Hey, I can pronounce that. I'll just call him Alice Hippopotamus, okay?
there we go.
Anyhow, he became, it says that he was of the eugenics movement, a pre-Nazi philosophy funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. As soon as I hear that name Rockefeller, I know it's funky then. His influence overpowered many contemporaries who were afraid to challenge the paradigm he was enforcing. But his draconian zeal, combined with his racist denial of culturally advanced Native Americans, did not help him at the Smithsonian in the following decades. An author, his name was David Hatcher Childress, first raised the alarm something was not right with the Smithsonian in 1993 with his controversial article entitled Smithsonian Gate. It outlined many non-giant related artifact discoveries at ancient sites that were never heard of again. These included the lost Egyptian artifacts that were found in the Grand Canyon in April of 1909, with numerous other discoveries. Online skeptics have ridiculed this as the genesis of the Smithsonian conspiracy theory, but as we delve into these upcoming accounts, we quickly find out they may prove relevant, not error, but relevant to giantology. So this guy, okay, long story short, he was promoting the theory of evolution, which was gaining a lot of ground at that time.
Yeah.
And of course, we know Charles Darwin, the mastermind behind that. And when you find out his real story, you'll understand that the only reason he came up with that theory was because he wanted to get back at his dad, who was a very good minister. Him and his dad got into a big argument, and he wanted to disprove his dad so bad and make him look, I don't know, stupid. He developed this theory that we didn't, that God didn't create man, that we came from a single atom and developed, the species developed over millions and millions and millions of years. So that's obviously the theory of evolution. However, the theory of evolution always had that missing link. Where's that missing? They can never find the missing link. There's probably a reason for that. And the reason is it never existed to begin
I was
with.
going to say, because it was never there to begin with.
Now, they try to say that it's Bigfoot. If Bigfoot's ever found, Bigfoot's probably the missing link. No. The Bigfoot does exist. I will most adamantly, put both my hands up for that. Because I see him. I know he exists. And I know these other creatures that we're going to be getting into real quickly, I know they exist. We're talking about Dog Man, the Mothman, of course, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. There's a thing out there they call the Genosqua. My friend, co-author Richard McCann's seen this thing about 175 yards away, but he had his camcorder on it. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a video of a great creature here. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to get it on video. Started taking a video of it. And just as he had it, zeroed in on it to make out the details, that thing had his head down a little bit. And he raised his head back up. And he looked right at him. He went, "Rah!" Well, Richard said that's all the recording we're going to do for tonight. He put that thing away, went in his cabin, and he shut the door, locked it, went and got his gun, and sat in front of the door, just waiting for that thing to come charging in. He was going to fill full lead before it killed him. Because he thought that's what it was going to do. But it didn't kill him, obviously. But at the time, he thought he was a dead man. Because he thought, well, if he does come in through here, when he comes through that door, I'm going to let him have both barrels. And he's going to go out with a stomach full of lead. Anyhow, he recorded things. I got the picture in the book, the Supernatural Cryptid book of mine. I got the picture of it. Matter of fact, it's in the back of it, and it's also in section 3, the bonus section. And if you look really close, you can see that the face of it looks like a lion with fangs on each side of his jaw. Kind of like a lion, but a little bit bigger fangs. And it's the face of a female lion, he says, a female lion. So it would be a little bit more short-haired, I guess you could say, and not as broad across the face part. But when you look at it, you can even see the nose of the lion. Looks just like a female lion. And we're going to be getting into that. Well, I just told basically the story on that one, but there's so many other stories out there. Now, I'm really running across this thing pretty fast, and if anybody comes up with a question, Brian, go ahead and stop me, and I'll see if I can answer it for them.
We got lots of agreement, and we actually have a statement too that how crooked Smithsonian is. Amy WC. Oh, where to go? A friend just got a response from the Smithsonian. It was clear they didn't hardly read his inquiry. Just a form letter back, pretty much. So you can
And
Smithsonian's
what's that tell you?
they're
Oh,
only up
yeah, yeah.
to
You don't know any more now than what you knew before you sent it in.
yeah.
Let me tell you about the museum stuff. We went on a field trip for fossils when I was in the 10th grade. And we walked down a railroad track back to the tunnel in Newcomerstown, Ohio. And I used to live right there, that yellow house. So I lived right there above the railroad track. And the railroad track had a lot of history to it. It was the same track that they sent Abraham Lincoln back on after he got assassinated by John Wilkes Booth over there in Washington, D.C. They sent him back to Illinois, and he went on a train back through across that track, that's pretty good history. But we went back here to look for fossils, maybe before Noah's flood and how the water and how the geography made fossils and stuff. We was going to go back here for our science class. So the teacher took us back there. We're all walking, walking down the road track. You got to walk kind of single file. So people are walking now, and as kids, we're just looking around. And my friend in front of him, he was a real good track star. And anyhow, he just happened to look down. He goes, "Hey, what's that? That looks kind of weird. Looks like it has a footprint on it." So he reached out, picked it up. He goes, "That kind of looks like a little dinosaur track or something." And the science teacher says, he called my last name. He says, "You found that on top of the railroad track. I hardly think that's going to be anything." He looked at it and he goes, his jaw, I kid you not, just about dropped to the ground. His eyes got as big as eggs. He goes, "Oh my God, that does look like a dinosaur track." And he went and he looked it up, and here it looked like it was a very small black, if I'm pronouncing that right, Velociraptor, like it was in one of that Jurassic Park movie.
The Velociraptor.
There you go. I tell you, I can't pronounce words tonight to save my soul, but yeah, Velociraptor, whatever. You said it better. And so we're going to send this to the museum in Texas. I know just where to send it. They'll know what it is, and they'll know how old this thing is. He said, it could be 65 million years old. He goes, "What a find." He said, "Congratulations, son." He goes, "Hopefully they can, put your name beside the find in the records." And he said, "Well, I'm going to ask them to do that too." Well, guess what? He sent them to Texas, all right. I talked to my friend about 10 years ago, and I said, "Hey, did you ever hear anything out back about that thing you found on the railroad track that day?" He goes, "Oh, that dinosaur track?" I goes, "Yeah." He goes, "No." He said, "I've never have heard anything about it." He said, and I asked my science teacher, he said, you mentioned that. He said, about 5 years ago, I ran into him at Walmart. And I asked him about that. He said, "We never got that back." He said, "They kept it. Never heard a thing." Wow, that just surprises me, doesn't it? And I believe that's exactly what's happened with the people sending them bones of the giants over to the Smithsonian. They got hold of them. They realized what they were. Well, this gets out that there were giants on this North America. Uh, People might start thinking that the Bible's true after all. No, 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 no. We can't have that. We got to figure out a way to destroy these things. And now here's a quote, and I'm quoting this. Okay, Childress put this out in his book. It's the next page over, so I know right where to find it. Listen to this. Uh, in a private conversation with a well-known historical researcher, whose name obviously shall be anonymous, I was told that a former employee of the Smithsonian, who was dismissed for defending the view of diffusionism in America, which is the theory that there were other races and beings here before Christopher Columbus in 1492, alleged that the Smithsonian at one time had actually taken a barge full of unusual artifacts out into the Atlantic Ocean and dumped them. Now, quote, I did say alleged.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying this is bona fide true, but would it really surprise you, Brian? Would it surprise our listeners? Probably not.
Yeah.
Now, there you go. So you talked about a conspiracy theory. There you could have a conspiracy theory. Um, okay, so we heard from this guy. What about the Indians themselves? They were here when Christopher, came on the scene. Let's hear what the Indians say about the giants. This is entitled in my book, The Elder Speaks. In the fascinating documentary, True Legends, Episode 3, Holocaust of Giants, researchers Stephen Quell, Thomas Horn, and Timothy Alberino, those are probably some well-known names for you, um, met up with some of the Pueblo tribal elders in the Four Corners region of the USA. The elders shared their knowledge of the giants. In one segment, Zuni Pueblo elder Clifford Mahudi stated, there are giants, according to our Zuni history. There are many references about them in the medicine societies and all the rituals. There have been many stories about the giants, one of which I remember is that they used to live underground, and this is where they supposedly live to this very day. Mahudi makes an interesting statement about the red-haired giants the Payati tribe speaks of. One of the things I learned when I used to go up there was that they have a place where they have a grave where they had seen a red-haired giant actually buried there. I have a friend that is a mountain climber who actually seen this take place, and he talks about the burial place of the red-haired giants. He doesn't talk to anyone about it now because he knows if they found out, they are going to take these bones. And in the past, the museums took the bones and they disappeared.
Yep.
Hmm. So, and a lot of the bones, to be truthful with you, were also sold on the dark web. They'd get thousands and thousands of dollars for these. I can't imagine what price tag they would put on a full skeleton of 12 feet. I imagine that would get you up there right into the $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah. You're six figures
So
easy.
what's that now?
6 figures easy.
Oh, easy, easy. Now, and then I got in my book here tons and tons of newspaper articles where some of them are still buried there, and then I talk about the mounds in my book and how when you dug into these mounds, when the white settlers come over, and they said they asked the Indians, just said, "What about these mounds? You guys built them, right? I mean, we found some arrowheads and some tomahawks and stuff around the mounds, so we figure you guys built them. How did you guys do that?" And the Indians said, "We don't know nothing about. We never built those mounds. We imagine and we expect that the giants that we've encountered over here as we explored the United States, as we explored North America grounds, like Lewis and Clark, went out and explored. We believe that they made them because we have found giant bones around these mounds. And so we're just connecting the dots. We're putting 2 plus 2 together. What
Yeah.
kind of giant bones? Well, there were 12, 14, 16, and even 18 footers they found. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you hear things like that, and the Indian didn't make them, and that the giant probably did, again, why would the Smithsonian want to champion that kind of information if they are dog-hearted, dog-headed for the evolution theory? And they love that theory because it doesn't say anything about God. And they were a godless society. And they are godless people. And one of the most godless people was running it, Alice Hardricula or Alice hippopotamus.
There we go.
So you people that are listening, again, it doesn't take an Einstein to connect the dots. I'm just giving you as much as I possibly can because obviously I've never actually seen a giant bone myself, but I did see one in a book that I was researching for this, and I even cut the picture out, and I think it's in my book somewhere. If it's not, it should be, because I sent it to the publishers. And I, you know, and like I said, my head's in a twirl. I've been so heavy on about, trying to get myself moved. I can't remember everything, even it's in my own book. So I had to go back through and make sure that I researched everything. But I'm pretty sure that picture is there. And this man, which looked like 50% of the giant, okay? The giant looked like he was about a 12-footer, and the man right around 6 foot. So that would be 50% of him. So I really believe that it was a legitimate picture that was in that book. That guy put in his book, to talk. We're talking about giant. Obviously, there's not a bunch of pictures because a lot of these bones, when they were found, they were so old and brittle that once exposed to oxygen, they just crumbled into dust. But some of the skulls didn't crumble into dust. Some of the skulls actually had giant teeth. And I remember there was a couple of guys that were from New Hampshire, and they started to do a channel on a giant show, National Geographic, I believe it was. And they only done one season of them. And these guys were Masons, and they were brothers. And so the one brother was all for the giant, and the other one was I don't know, but hey, I get on TV, I'll go on TV. We'll look for giants. I had no problem with that. I'll get on TV. But as he started looking, he ended up finding a giant tooth in a cave that was, you put all your fingers together. That was how big the tooth was.
Yeah.
One tooth. And I know I see these things popping up. Other people probably know exactly what I'm talking about. I can't think of the name of the show.
I
And
think it's
the one
Hunting
guy's
Giants.
name is trying to come through my head, but I just I can't recall it.
I'm pretty sure it was Hunting Giants. Let me double check it.
That very well could be. And there were two Mason brothers, and they found some things up there, even close to their own home in a cave. And then close to that cave,
Oh,
huh?
Chasing Giants TV show.
Chasing giant. There you go. And guess what? They stopped it at the end of the first year because
Yeah.
you know why?
Too
They were
close.
getting too close, and they didn't want them actually finding any. That wasn't their purpose. They just wanted to run. Oh, we almost got it, like some Bigfoot program. We almost got a picture of them. We almost got a video of them. We almost did. That's what they wanted. They didn't want anybody to find anything. But when they actually found something, they cut the program off. Said, "No, we're not airing it no more." There just seems to be some type of as L.A. Marzulli calls it, an obfuscation that no one wants you to know anything, and so they just shut it down. And if somebody does say they found something, they deny it. So anyhow, you saying, "Okay, Walker, okay, I get it." So you say they're giants. For the sake of argument, let's just say they were giants. How do these giants now relate to Bigfoot and all these other cryptids people are saying? How do they relate? Well, there are several researchers, and I have had several books that make this connection. I'm not the only one that's made it. Let's just view some of the similarities. Bigfoot, how tall is he generally? 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. Even some have even said 15.
Yeah.
Typically. We're talking typically. But do you know how big the giants were back in those days? The bones that they have found were 7, 8. 9, 10, 12, some 15, some a little bit bigger. Right along the same exact height. Well, them giants could have been that hairy then, huh? I imagine they were just like people. You ever see a hairy man?
You're looking at one.
I knew you cracker Jack was going to speak up there. But you're right. And there, some of the angels were hairy, and I imagine these fallen critters, these fallen angels. I imagine some of them look pretty doggone hairy themselves. My point being is that if Bigfoot is so strong and powerful and has extra sensory perception, and sometimes people claim that he talks to them telepathically or something like that, I don't subscribe to that because that's not been my experience. But I'm not saying that they couldn't. I'm just saying that there's a lot of supernatural qualities to these cryptids, and they also have a quality. I don't know if the giants had it. I imagine they did. These cryptids, like Bigfoot, seemingly can just disappear. Or I've talked to eyewitnesses that said they were standing there one minute, they turned their head and looked right back to where they was at before. They were gone. Never heard them leave. They just took their eyes off of them. They were gone. And they said they crunchy leaves. You would have had to heard them take off. Nothing. And then they walked over to where they were standing. No tracks. Now wait a minute. Were they ever really even there? Apparently, they seen them, but they said there was no tracks.
John summarizes this pretty simply. It says yes, they could poof. So, and you and I have experienced that where you're following tracks and then all of a sudden they stop and there's no reason to explain it.
So they've actually had these giant Bigfoots surrounded, came in. There was no possible avenue for escape. They had their nets all spread. They were going to throw the nets on them and tangle them up and then shoot them with dart guns to sedate them or whatever. Never found them. And they were just right there behind the tree. They were gone. Where'd they go? Did they climb the tree? Don't you think somebody would have seen them climb the tree? No, they didn't climb the tree. They didn't go in a cave. They didn't go underneath the ground. They didn't even go up in a UFO. Where'd they go? Now, the Indians have a theory, and I told you, I subscribe to it. And people, I get all kind of bad vibes from people. And I've had top guys in the Bigfoot community that could have promoted me, and I could have went a lot farther. But I've had them, and I'm not going to mention their names. They said, "Dude, let me tell you something. You're barking up the wrong tree. That paranormal stuff, no. This thing's a real creature. It doesn't just up and disappear." And I said, then basically, you're calling me a liar because I kind of seen it disappear. Now, not right in front of my eye, poop. I'm referring to the evidence that I followed.
Mhm.
So, well, I'm just telling you, you're going to get a lot of flack. And then he was right. He was right. 70 to 80% of the Bigfoot community thoroughly believe this is just a regular natural creature. I'm at the point, Brian, where I believe that if the Bigfoot was not made in the Garden of Eden. God did not make a Bigfoot. I believe he was made by the evil or the darker side of the supernatural. The good side being God, evil side being devil, Satan, whatever. So you're basically saying, Mr. Walker, that these things are demons walking around in crazy, furry, hairy bodies. Is that what you're saying? Again, no. It sounds like that's what I might be insinuating. And I'm not saying that they aren't. And I'm also not saying that they are. I personally don't know, but I do believe that they are associated with that realm. Now, again, I sound like I'm calling them a demon. I'm not. But I'm just saying that if these things have supernatural powers, they got to be closely related. I don't just like some of us. We got cousins, right? Cousins, uncles. We got different relatives. Yeah, they're the same race, but they're different. They look different. Some are mean. Some are benevolent. Some are pretty good relatives. Although in my family, they're not very good relatives, but I'm not. They're not Bigfoots either. But I'm just trying to give you guys an analogy to go by. Uh, they're probably a different class of beings. If you look in Ephesians 6, verse 12, it talks about five different classes of supernatural beings. So if there are different classes of these beings, could Bigfoot be one of those classes? In one of those classes? Most definitely. It could be, but perhaps not in the same class as the demon. Or it could be demons that have, like the angels did, were able to transform their selves, their bodies into something different, and into something that looks like a Bigfoot or whatever. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. Am I saying it is? No, I'm no. And I don't say that in my book either. All I do is I'm just asking questions. What do you guys think? Is it possible? So then what about UFOs? Where do they rank at? I put them into with the cryptids because UFOs are they can do some pretty supernatural feats with their aerial vehicles. So now they don't call them UFOs anymore. They call them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. What's the difference? UFO, I mean, it's flying objects. But again,
Dave,
like I was telling you before, Brian, in Luke 21:11, there's two things that the Lord was warning people about that would occur just getting ready to come back. And one of those things, he said there'll be frightful sights and signs from the heavens. Hmm. Well, if you've ever seen a Bigfoot or a dog man or a mothman or Genosqua or a man looking giant, they're pretty fearful, especially if you see one of them rake things. You ever hear about the rake?
yeah, yep, yep.
They also have some other things over in Afghanistan and over in Iraq and places, and even over into Sweden, Denmark. That's actually where my relatives come from, a Sweden, Denmark area. And then you're talking about the epic of Beowulf, how the Beowulf went out and got a hold of the Grendel. Well, the Grendel is described just like a Bigfoot would be described, or even close, almost a mix between a Bigfoot and a what they call a reptilian,
Mm.
long claws, more of a dog type face, and so there's various mixtures of these animals. I guarantee you that. And so, since I'm talking about that mixture, let me go ahead and I'm going to go into chapter 3, and I'm going to kick this thing into high gear. Okay, chapter 3 is in my book talks about the mythology, and so I'm going to build on that, and then I'm going to go into the stories of Richards and tell you some really good stories, and then it'll probably be question and answer time, and it'll probably be close
We
to
might have
the
to
end
do
of the
that
show.
part next week. We might have to bring you back for that part next week because we're pushing an hour 12 now.
How much more time do we have?
A couple minutes. We can have a few.
Okay, couple minutes. Let me
Look,
just go ahead and go straight to the stories then.
that's right.
Okay, so there's a chapter in Richard's thing. It's called the pit. Unfortunately, that's not the money pit. It's called the pit. It's a place where it's in Hocking County. It's a place where paranormal things happen on a daily basis. I remember one time I've been there, so I know. You only go into the pit between the hours of 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. And it's any other time, it's very dangerous. And you will see things. So, one time, I mean, he has a ton of stories with the pit, a ton of stories. But one day they went in and they really came across some paranormal stuff. And so during this particular thing, they went way there. There was about 5 or 6 of them. No, 7 of them went down. First thing they found was a Bigfoot track. So the one guy said, "I'm going to just go ahead and cast that." He said, "Yeah, while you're casting that, we'll go ahead. We're going to look around for some more, for some more tracks or, whatever we can see." They found scrape marks, deep claw marks, almost like a bear would make, but they weren't up and down like a bear would be. Morty up and down. These were swiped across the tree, or swiped across a rock face. And so they found him. So during the story of the pit, I know the time's flying by. There was a young girl that was there with them, and she's seen a woman that was dressed in white, beautiful white dress, and she thought that was odd that the woman had a white dress. So she said, "Oh, hello, ma'am. A nice day for a hike, huh?" And the woman says, "Yeah, I come here to escape." And she thought that was a weird answer. She said, "If you don't mind me asking, escape from what?" And she just shook. She just shook her head and kept on looking down at the ground. So she turned away from the woman and she looked over at the other guy doing the casting, as if like shaking her head, like, "What is this woman talking about?" And she looked back at the woman to say some more things to her. The woman wasn't there. She she said it wasn't any more than 3 seconds that she turned her head and she was completely gone. And so she called over to the guy's name. She said, "Todd." She said, "Didn't you just see me talking to a woman?" He said, "That woman in white?" She said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, her." He said, "Yeah, I saw her. And why?" She said, "Well, she just up and disappeared." He goes, "What?" He looked over. He goes, "I just saw her myself about 5 seconds ago." He said, "I saw her talking to you." So he's looking around. You're looking around for this woman. He goes, "Well," he called her by name. I think her name was Mary. He said, "Well, Mary, welcome to the pit." He said, "Anything can happen here." And Todd had been there probably about 5 or 6 times before that. So he had some stories, of himself. And we're going to go from that one. And that one. And so before they left, um, the little girl wandered up top of the cliff. Mary did. And she goes, "Hey," she goes, "come on up here, guys. I found something." I said, "What do you see?" She said, I don't know what to make of it. You just got to see it." So they're like, "What'd you see?" Probably ain't even worth going on. But they had to walk up a high hill, about 20 feet up the hill. It's pretty steep. So they grabbed a hold of trees to pull them up. They finally get up for huffing and puffing. They go, "Yeah, what is it?" She pointed against the wall, the stone wall. And here there were tracks that went not level. The track went up the wall.
Oh.
And then there was big tracks that went up the wall. And then there was smaller stuff that looked like, according to my co-author, looked like a dog man tracks right beside of the Bigfoot tracks. So they took pictures of the anomaly. They took pictures of it. The pictures are in my book. Now, how did those things climb up that 40-foot wall? Well, they were aided a little bit. There was a grapevine, pretty thick grapevine, and went up the wall too. And so the Bigfoot tracks was on one side of the grapevine, and the Dogman tracks on the other side. So, according to what he's seen, one of them was after the other one, and they used the grapevine to pull them up. Sounds like a pretty logical story. I went down there 2 or 3 times myself into the pit, and when I was down there, I ran across some big dog man tracks and some little ones. Little looked like a I don't know, a child. That's the only word I can a young one, along with the mother. And these were not bear tracks, these weren't deer tracks, they weren't raccoon or anything like that. They were completely different. And one other story I'm going to tell, and then I'm going to cut her off here, and it's a good one. I'll make it as short as I can. The 2 researchers went into the pit one snowy day in December. I think it was December the 21st, a few days before Christmas. They had an ice storm, and it was bad. And he said, "Are you sure you still want to go?" Yeah. If you don't mind. And so my co-author, he's hardcore. Well, if you want to go, I'll take you. So they made it. They walked down in there, and as they're walking toward the right side, they came across the bare spot, and they had a shoe, old tattered shoe in it. And then one guy went to go and pick it up. He goes, "Don't do it." He goes, "It's a trap." What? Yeah, you're kidding, right? No, he said, "It's a trap." So he said, "Take a picture of it. Zoom up if you want to. Take a picture. We'll use that for evidence." He said, I just think that we shouldn't touch that shoe." He said, "Okay." So they went to the other direction. They take about 15 steps, and then they hear something coming down over the hill, and it's coming fast. I'm like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." He goes, get your camera ready." This thing is coming down, but it's dragging its leg. And as they look at it, they go like, "What?" They see a man with a ball hat on, with a short sleeve shirt on, and it's 20 degrees outside, and the wind's howling. And he has a pair of overalls on and tennis shoes. But he's dragging his leg, and his arms don't look right. He's like, something's going on. He goes, "Get up there with your camera and film him. I'm going to cut around the other way. I'm going to get a close up of this guy." So he goes one way. The cameraman goes straight ahead of him, and pretty soon he sees that this thing isn't. It takes a jump, and it jumps 30 feet, and then it jumps another 30 feet, and then it jumped a third time, and as it's jumping a third time, Rich always has the gun pulled out, and he's yelling obscenities at him because he knows this isn't right. As he gets closer to this thing as it jumped a third time, halfway through the jump, he sees the back of this thing's shirt. He sees it rip, and he sees black or dark brown hair sticking out of the bit, just like the Incredible Hulk when he gets mad and he rips his shirt or his shirt. He's seen this thing rip, and he saw hair underneath it sticking out. And then he couldn't see the head begin to transform, but then he couldn't see it no more. He's looking. He knows it's behind that rock, because that's where he last landed. So he's within about 10 feet of the rock. So he goes, "Come out, you know," he's yelling, "Blanky, blank out," and says, "Come out now. Show yourself." Doesn't see anything. Pretty soon the cameraman hustles over to him. He goes, Rich. He said, "Where'd that thing go?" He goes, "I don't know. He's behind that rock, I guess. I haven't walked behind to look at it." He goes, "Well, walk around there." He goes, "Because he's not there." He goes, "Come on, I just saw him." He goes, "He had to be there." So he walked behind the rock, nothing. He said, dude, that thing just up and disappeared. Where did it go? He said the hill in front of him was about 300 feet, almost straight up. And it was icy. He said, there's no way that thing could have climbed that hill. It didn't go out the backside because that's where the cameraman was standing looking at the backside. He didn't go out the backside. It didn't come toward Rich, obviously, or he probably would have shot at it. He said, dude, David, that thing just up and disappeared. And he said it was turning into, he said, if I would guess, although I can't prove it, it was turning into a werewolf. That was his guess. Now, again, some of these things can't be 100% proved. The cameraman got glimpses of it, but the cameraman didn't get the point to where it turned into, it tore its back shirt off. He didn't get that part.
Gotcha.
But he did get a picture of it, of the guy wearing a ball hat. And this was, like I said, 15, 20 degrees, wind howling, snowing hard, or not snowing. It was snowing a little bit, but the ice was the main major factor, the weather factor that day. And so that's the end of my storyline on what he saw on the one chapter, anyhow. So obviously, we're at the end of this thing. You take her from here, brother.
Well, we got all kinds of requests wanting you to come back. Can you come back next week?
I sure will. If your listeners want to hear more, I got a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, we got to get into the UFO portion because we got people talking about it already.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah, so
I got some real good stuff to tell them about that one and who I believe these entities are.
Yeah, because we got, when you said about frightful sights in the sky, somebody brought up the fact of, I believe Amy, let's find her comment. The fact, I believe it's 3A, and then appears, and all of a sudden NASA goes offline.
Oh, yeah.
Shut down. I don't think that's a coincidence.
They're really good at disappearing in front of your eyes. I got several stories. We'll talk about UFOs and how that ties right in with what we're talking about the Nephilim. And let's throw in one more thing before you say. Let's throw in one more thing. We'll talk about orbs.
Yes.
So that's what we'll talk about next time. Orbs, UFOs, and things of that nature.
The pit. You said where that was at, didn't you?
It's in Hawking County. I'm not at liberty to give out the exact location. I'll just say it's in Hawking County, not very far from Old Man's Cave, and some of the other, and a beautiful area. Beautiful area.
That's Ohio, right?
Down around the Logan Lake area.
Gotcha. And let's see. So, I remember where I wanted to go because people were. I'm with you. I don't know what they are, so my mind is open as far as what Bigfoot is and what these cryptids are. But we did have comments that just because it's flesh and blood doesn't mean it doesn't have paranormal activity or paranormal abilities. And then also, I believe you did mention earlier, but John missed the part where the fact that, in the Grand Canyon, there's supposed to be an area that's, where they found some of these bones and a bunch of other artifacts that they have closed
And now
down.
it's sealed off now.
Yeah. And with that, I hear a puppy in the background.
Yeah, the people downstairs got home. And that's what you hear whenever they get home.
Yeah. I know the same way. I got a puppy scratching at the door.
Well, mine are being good. Mine are being really good. That's Oreo. That was Oreo, the last one. A little Shih Tzu. He named Oreo.
All right. Well, we
So I
leave on
mean,
another cliffhanger.
everybody's on board for the big program next week? Then
Yes, we are. We, as soon as I mentioned we might have to break it up, and they were come back. And I know Grizzly mentioned in the chat about maybe wanting you on another show as well that they do. So he may be getting a hold of you. If you, let's see, if I can find his comment about being on a big review. Here it is from Mary. Yes, we should invite him to the reveal from Missouri and get your opinion. So that's
you know,
you were talking about.
where I would have loved to have went. I would have loved to went, Brian. They had a thing out there in the Four Corner area of Arizona, New Mexico. What's the other two states? The Four Corners.
Oh man, you're calling me out on live YouTube. My geography skills are not so good, so I have to rely on Google.
But anyhow, that
Yeah.
Four Corners area.
Yep.
They had a conference out there, something about moon something, and it was about all these cryptids and UFOs and the dog man and Sasquatch, and they didn't say anything about the Genosqua. I would have loved to went to it because I would have had a lot of things to say in that conference that I think they would have really found interesting, but I wasn't able to attend.
Yeah, I know how that goes. Yeah. And we could, I'll touch on it right now. We can talk about it next week too. Is the fact that it blows my mind that something that doesn't exist, yet there's so many people pushing a certain narrative, and if you don't follow that narrative, you get ostracized over it, and
And
it
I'm
just
I'm the guy to get ostracized. I definitely got ostracized about it. But hey, I am one to think outside the box. And if any of your listeners are like me, or if you're like me, I think you can get down to the truth when you think outside the box.
yeah, it's the only way you find it. All right, my friend, we're gonna wrap this up tonight. Can you hang out for just a second backstage?
Sure will.
All right, talk to you in a second. All right, everybody, as you heard, UFO and Orbs Part 2, because we got so in depth with what was happening here tonight. And you guys keep coming back, and I enjoy it. So now we have all the foundation down. Now it's start to and the outside of the house. So now we are going to start looking at the decorations next week. And with that, we are going to say from coast to coast and around the world. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt that. Prayers, please, for Jennifer McDaniels and Justin Decker still. Jennifer is doing better. So please continue prayers for her and Justin as well. So now from coast to coast and around the world, you guys have yourself a fantastic weekend. And don't forget Monday night, we have Patty's filming 58th anniversary special. It starts at 10:20, the day of the anniversary. So we are throwing Patty a birthday party, and the guest of honor is MK Davis. So we are going to get a lot of information on the history of that Patty film, and what happened, how MK brought all these details that are still coming to light. We're going to get people who have tried to debunk it and what's been done about that. So don't forget 10:20 p.m. right here, Bigfoot Outlaw Network, coast to coast and around the world. Love and appreciate you guys, and have a great night.